passion, talent, development. NCAA hockey offers all that, and its players graduate at a 93% rate. Trevor Zegras.
And they score on the lacrosse move!
Jake Gensel.
Gensel banks it towards the goal, he scores!
Cale Makar.
Cale Makar, he scores!
Stars on campus before the NHL stage. Whether you're a fan or a player, nothing compares to college hockey.
My goodness gracious me!
Visit collegehockeyinc.com and follow at College Hockey.
Welcome back to College Hockey Today, Summer Edition. I'm Jayson Hajdu of College Hockey Inc., joined as always by Brad Schlossman of the Grand Forks Herald. Here we are, second week of July, and Schloss, you just came straight from a hockey rink. What is wrong with you?
Yeah, it's, getting to be that time where players start arriving on campus. We'll soon be going into World Junior camps, and then class will be starting. So, we just got through one of the busy news portions of the offseason, NHL Draft, followed by the free period of free agency, where we always are watching where former college players are headed. You have to keep that. College Hockey Inc. keeps track of where all the players are signed. So that is going to be a busy time for you. And hey, maybe this is one of the more particular newsworthy off seasons with the opening of the CHL.
I can say the NHL matchup tool at collegehockeyinc.com is updated, waiting for some jersey numbers. But yes, that's actually one of my. I'm a nerd. That's one of my funnest times of the day is July 1st, sitting at my desk like a sicko. But yeah, so we haven't done this since the Frozen Four recap in mid-April. So we will get to the draft. We're going to start with the news first. We'll finish with the draft, and we'll kind of go most recent to oldest here, working our way back, because the big news this week, the long-awaited decision of Gavin McKenna, the Medicine Hat Tigers superstar, 17-year-old forward, projected number 1 overall pick in next year's NHL Draft, revealed Tuesday on SportsCenter that he has committed to Penn State for this upcoming season.
Yeah, and he's going to instantly be a Hobey Baker Award candidate. We've seen some of these really, really high-end players come into college as young players and have success recently. Macklin Celebrini coming in as a 17-year-old, winning the Hobey Baker, helping BU get the Frozen Four is an example there. Adam Fantilli, another guy who came in and won the Hobey Baker and helped his team do a Frozen Four. Now Penn State, coming off its first Frozen Four appearance, comes away with the number 1 recruit in the country in Gavin McKenna. There are a few teams that were in on him, and the Nittany Lions are the team that comes away with it.
Seen some reaction pieces since the decision that this is a turning point for college hockey or something along those lines. I don't want to go that far. We've seen a lot of high-end recruits choose the college route in recent years, the Cale Makars, the Celebrinis, the Fantillis. But this is the first time since the CHL opened up to college hockey that a prospect of this caliber at that age had this decision to make and made that decision.
Yeah, and I think where it is big in that sense is the NCAA is a new thing for some of these CHL players, and a lot of them are committing. I don't know if I would describe it as a flood yet. It's a fast-moving stream maybe, but I think when other players look around and you see that that's the decision Gavin McKenna made. Keaton Verhoff, who's headed to North Dakota, could be a top 5 pick as well next year. And you start seeing some of these top players make that move. It makes other players look and say, you know what, maybe that's an avenue I need to do some more research on. And, it's definitely an interesting time, but a lot of those players are choosing to come to college hockey. And I think you're going to see even more. And one of the reasons why, there's a lot of reasons why. I'll have a column on that coming out tomorrow. But I think a lot of the guys who have done that route really enjoy it. I think when they look around and see how their transitions have been to the NHL, I think that's an attractive part. If it's a guy who may not play in the NHL, of course, you're getting your degree while you're playing hockey. That's got to be an attractive part to a lot of players. But when you get a player like Gavin McKenna, I think everyone else looks around and says, "Oh, that's where he went." And I think that's also, I mean, you were in Grand Forks when Jonathan Toews was the first number 1 overall pick in the CHL draft to come to college. And over the next few years, we were hearing of players committing that were saying, well, we saw Jonathan Toews at the World Juniors and found out he played for North Dakota, and that was interesting. And I think that's a big part, not only for Penn State's program, but for college hockey as a whole.
Yeah, and I think somewhat lost in all of this has been the perspective of the player. And speaking from a College Hockey Inc. standpoint, our mission is to not only grow the game, but to educate prospective players and their families about college hockey. It's nice that these players can now make these decisions at 17, 18, instead of having to make it at 14 and 15. I think that's been lost a little bit here.
Yeah, you're right. Some of these players are deciding at 14 or 15, do they want to go the CHL route or the college route? And especially for Canadian players, they may just want to stay closer to home for longer. I mean, we're still talking about young kids that are deciding to leave home at an early age, and some of them don't want to do that to stay college eligible, or to a lot of them want to play in the CHL. That's what they know. So now they can do both. And when you look at what the setup of the CHL and compared to the USHL and some of the European players, it's really hard to justify keeping them ineligible. I thought, and now this is another option for players, and a lot of them are taking it.
Let's zoom in a little bit to the on ice impact here. McKenna to Penn State. We'd heard Michigan in the running. We'd heard Michigan State in the running. As you said, Penn State fresh off their first Frozen Four run. The dominoes that fall here in terms of the Big Ten and Penn State specifically.
Yeah, and the other team that was in on him was Denver. I know he had a Zoom call with Denver as well. So those were the teams he was looking at. I think it ultimately came down to Penn State or Michigan State. Now all of a sudden he goes in there and just gives them a really explosive offensive weapon to a team that was scoring quite a few goals last year and returned a lot of players from last year.
They like to shoot the puck.
They love to shoot the puck at Penn State. They will continue to do that. They've got some guys that can really shoot the puck. Even you add in Matt Godowski out of the transfer portal, who should be a really important player. And, you start looking at that, and Penn State is going to end up being a team that's ranked in the top 5 at the start of the season. Will they be number 1? I don't know, but they'll be in the top 5. It's just what a crazy turnaround from December last year. Penn State was 0-8 in the Big Ten. And you're starting to wonder, when teams really struggle like that, sometimes you can lose a lot of guys.
Yep.
Whether it's the portal or guys signing,
or even just mentally lose them. For
sure. And they turned it around, and in part because, hey, their starting goaltender was out, and they struggled when he was out. He comes back. Sergeyev has a great season, and now all of a sudden a lot of these guys are back, and now all of a sudden they're recruiting at a high level. Yes, there is NIL money involved that helps, but I don't think Gavin McKenna's decision to come to college was strictly based on NIL money. I think there are development. He had 129 points last year in 56 games. Was he going to go back? Like, he's already averaging 2.3 points per game. Like, he completely dominated that level, and now he's going to go face older players. He's going to build some strength because he's going to have great workout facilities, which every college hockey team does. You go around the country and everyone's done a great job building nutrition programs, weight facilities, and he wants to prepare for the NHL in that way. And he had a great run in the WHL. And yeah, Penn State now becomes one of the favorites. Michigan State is another team that's going to be right at the top. They're in the top 5, and they have some turnover. The Spartans end up losing Isaac Howard. I don't think that was a complete shock to Michigan State. Like, I think when Isaac Howard announced he was coming back, you could read the tea leaves that he did not want to sign with Tampa. But if there was a trade, you knew this was possible. We've seen this happen before with other players. The trade happens, he signs, and Michigan State loses its Hobey Baker Award winner. When you start penciling in Michigan State's lineup, still looks really good. So it
was about 2 weeks ago. I opened Excel, started a new spreadsheet, went through every year of Hobey hat trick finalists, and compiled our list to track going forward of returning Hobey Baker winners. Isaac Howard is on that list, and then all of that research was gone in an instant. But on the flip side, this is a happy Oilers fan, so it's the balance. So that went down the same night as the McKenna news later that evening. Wouldn't sign with Tampa, couldn't sign with Tampa, traded to Edmonton. Now he's possibly leveraged himself onto a line with Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. So you certainly cannot blame the player for how this all played out.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I think Michigan State staff was aware of this being a possibility. Like I said, they still have a really good team. We've talked about all these CHL guys coming over. I feel like we've barely mentioned Caden Lindstrom. He's the number 4 overall pick from a year ago, and he's going to Michigan State. So another top 5 pick coming down to play college hockey. Obviously you lose a Hobey Baker Award winner. That's a big loss for Michigan State. Again, I still think they're a top 5 team in the country preseason? Probably, and when you have really good goaltending, that helps, and Michigan State has it.
Okay, some other news this week, off the ice news. Tennessee State announced, we're recording this on Thursday, and they announced earlier today they will push their start date to the 26-27 season. They were slated to start this year as a Division I program. That'll get pushed back one more year. No surprise, really, to anyone that's been following higher ed news in that area. They've had all kinds of budgetary problems at Tennessee State University, and this is some of the fallout from that.
Yes, and personnel changes on campus, budget issues. And we'll see where it goes from here. Hopefully they can get things going. I think everyone would like to see them join the ranks of Division I hockey. I think when you start seeing all these other players that have become available through the CHL, what that does is it means if you're starting a D1 college hockey team, you're going to have more than enough players to be pretty good pretty quick. So we'll see if they can get that done.
1 month ago today, it was announced, in College Hockey Inc., along with the Hockey Commissioners Association, played a role in this, that the Spengler Cup this upcoming year will have a team of basically college hockey all-stars for the first time in the history of the Spengler Cup, a prestigious tournament. I think it's 100+ years it's taken place in Davos, Switzerland, always between Christmas and New Year's. The U.S. Collegiate Selects will represent NCAA Division I hockey at this year's tournament. Roster and staff still TBA, but some pretty big news on the college hockey landscape.
Yeah, that should be really fun to follow over the holidays this year. For those that don't know, I mean, the tournament's played in a beautiful arena in Davos. It's extremely unique. College hockey teams have done it in the past. I think North Dakota went there in the 80s, so it has happened in the past. But Davos hosts it, and they invite some other teams from around Europe. So this should be a pretty cool. Canada always has a team, but this should be a pretty cool addition to have a college hockey team going over there. The to play in Davos, I think you're going to have a few volunteers that want to participate in this event, both from a staff and a player side.
We had no shortage of volunteers for the coaching and GM positions, which is great. This was a pet project of Mike Snee, the former executive director at College Hockey Inc. And he would tell you, you're never quite sure how something like this will be received within the college hockey world. It's over the holidays. There's a lot of teams that will be losing players to World Juniors. Will teams be willing to loan players out? And so far, the response has been pretty overwhelmingly positive, which is great. Yeah, and the goal is to represent all of Division I college hockey. Every conference will be represented. The independents will be represented, which is great. And the goal is to not just go there. The goal is to win it. So we'll see. Schedule to be announced, team to be announced, staff to be announced, but pretty exciting stuff. Okay. Also this summer, about 5 weeks ago, the House settlement was finally approved, ushering in a new structure in NCAA 1 athletics. I guess the long and the short of it is Division I schools that opt into this new structure will be able to share revenue with their student athletes. They will be bound by roster limits. Your thoughts on this whole change?
And also with those limits, they will be allowed to give every one of those players a full scholarship. So they can bump up from 18 to 26 full scholarships. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think, the questions are, first of all, how many scholarships will teams add? I don't know if every team's going to go up to 26. Maybe some do, some don't. But if you go over 18 at all, you are officially an opt-in school and you are roster limited at 26.
And that locks in. There is no getting around that if you lose some players mid-season.
Yep, and in the Big Ten schools are they have to opt in because they are part of that settlement. Arizona State has to opt in. Other schools have a choice, and we're seeing some of them decide to opt in right now. And, a little bit of both ways. I think, to me, the question to each institution is, if you're opting in, what does it mean? Because right now we're seeing a lot of media coverage over teams that announce they're opting in. That doesn't necessarily mean anything's going to be different. They might have the same roster size, the same scholarships that they hand out, the same revenue that they share now. They're just calling themselves an opt-in school. So I think the follow-up needs to be, what does it mean for your school? And so that's what we're going to see, how it plays out. How many scholarships are teams handing out? Some are going to 21, I'm hearing. Some are... there will probably be some at 26, but I think the question is, what does it mean? And a lot of ADs are unable to answer that right now. So that will have to play out in the coming months.
Our last bit of news, when we last recorded, we had already gone through a cycle of coaching changes and coaching retirements. But since then, 2 more dominoes fell. Bill McCult, after 1 year as head coach at Lindenwood, was named head coach at Michigan Tech when Joe Sean was surprisingly not retained by the school. And then about 2 to 3 weeks later, I think it was, Keith Fisher named head coach at Lindenwood after 13 years on the Penn State staff.
Yeah, Bill McCult's been at Michigan Tech before as an assistant. He had a lot of success there. He had a lot of success at Michigan as an assistant. I thought he did a really nice job at Lindenwood, coming in, and Lindenwood was really able to be competitive against several really good teams last year. He was able to bring Owen Bartoszkiewicz, his goalie from Lindenwood, over to Michigan Tech. Isaac Gordon, one of their star forwards, who is planning on transferring to North Dakota, decided actually he wants to stay at Michigan Tech. So he is going to stay. So there's the Huskies have a few things happening there right now. And Bill McCult was a really, really good recruiter for Michigan. And I think that'll be something that the Huskies hope he can continue doing there in Houghton. And I shouldn't just say at Michigan, did a great job at Tech too. So they were going to the NCAA tournament for their first time in decades. And Mel Pearson was the head coach, and Bill McCult was the assistant there.
Oh, I got you back. My computer froze on me for a second there, but that's okay because we can move on to David Carl. Not a coaching change, but this was such a present storyline the last time we spoke. Will he or won't he leave for the NHL? David Carl does stay at Denver.
Yeah, that's big news for Denver. He's had, of course, a lot of success winning a couple national championships at the University of Denver, and now the Pioneers able to retain him despite having NHL offers. And I think in part with the CHL being open and players coming to college, I think college is going to really become a destination not only for players but for coaches. And in a lot of ways, this is going to be the most prominent level of hockey outside the NHL. And so I think you're going to see NHL teams continue to come down and look for coaches. Pat Ferschweiler was another guy who had his name in the mix this year. Nate Lehman's been a guy whose name's been in the mix in the past. And but for David Carl to pass up on that offer takes a lot, and says a lot about his confidence in the sport. And you can see it the way he's continually tries to push college hockey forward and with different ideas.
We just covered about 3 months of news in about 25 to 30 minutes. I think we're all caught up. If we miss any more, we'll be back with another pod. But before we wrap up here, let's rewind a little bit to the NHL draft. We haven't had a chance to even talk about that yet. But another successful draft for college hockey, 76 current or committed players drafted overall. That's the most in the 7-round era, which is about a 20-year span. 10 first-round picks and at least 10 college players taken in 5 of the 7 rounds. All in all, a really strong draft for college hockey. Did anything jump out at you, either round 1 or rounds 2 through 7?
Not really. I do think once you get past the first 45 picks or so, every team's board is so different. We see these rankings through the top 100, and everyone kind of has the same names in the same spots. That's not actually what NHL teams' boards look like. They are all over the place. Some guys will have a guy maybe graded 30 that other teams won't have on their board at all. So teams' opinions really change on guys after you get past the first stretch. I think we know who the college guys are in the first round. You saw James Hagens go number 7 to Boston. You had I'm trying to think of who the next guy was. Jackson Smith, defenseman, going to Penn State. He went 14 to Columbus. Cole Reshny, going to North Dakota, went number 18 to Calgary. And then at the end of the first round, you got real busy there in Los Angeles because it was pick after pick for college hockey players. We'll
I get my steps in because I'm trying to not only crank graphics out on the fly, but I'm also trying to run back to the media staging to get photos that we can send to all of the SIDs for their coverage. So once those runs hit, it gets hairy in a hurry.
I think if there's one thing that stood out to me when you look at the first round, it's how many players that were selected that played in college in their draft year.
Yeah.
And that usually means you have to accelerate high school to get there. And, James Hagens was playing at BC last year. You go down, Logan Hensler, he was at Wisconsin. Will Horkoff played at Michigan. Sasha Boumedian played at BU. Cullen Potter played at ASU. I mean, you had 5 guys, and when's the last time we've seen that? I don't think we've seen a lot of that. And next year's draft, we already know a couple guys who are accelerating and playing in college hockey. We've mentioned them already with McKenna, in Keaton Verhoff. So that was something that really stood out to me. Like, how many guys are playing college in their draft year?
Yeah, and just to rewind to something we touched on earlier, is this a new era with elite prospects choosing college hockey? There have been 44 NCAA first rounders taken in the last 5 drafts, and that's the most ever in a 5-year span. Mm-hmm. So just piggybacking on what we were talking through earlier, that this is not an active college hockey players that were taken, which is a strong number, somewhere around that number. So yeah, it was a good weekend. One of these years we'll get you to the draft for some live coverage as well.
I was there last year.
That's right. Yeah,
I was down there in Vegas. Next year, I think there's a good chance I'll be there. It helps when North Dakota has a guy that's going to go high. Keaton Verhoff should go high. Still waiting to see the official destination for next year. Vegas. It also helps when it's in person. That's the other thing that was weird. When we say in person, it meant a lot of the team personnel and the scouts, the GMs, the coaches, they were all back at where their team is located. They weren't down there.
Yeah.
And when everyone in the hockey world's down there, it sure helps being able to meet people and chat with people.
When I checked into my hotel, the first person I saw 3 feet from me was Lanny McDonald. So yeah, it's a who's who of hockey, especially when everyone's there. And now that you mention it, I had forgotten that while I was chained to my desk in Vegas, chained to my computer, you and Alec Johnson were constantly doing laps around the arena and around the work area while us grunts were slaving away. So yeah, you were there.
Yeah, you were busy up there in the Sphere, up in the back room of the Sphere, and I was kind of going back and forth watching the draft with my own eyes and going back to where everyone comes back for interviews and trying to get photos of, like you said, we try to get photos of college players because we're going to use these in our coverage coming up, and it's always a great spot to chat with players and get photos of them.
No question. Okay, before I let you go, just about mid-July here. We're not really ramping up into college hockey coverage yet, but I know you're doing a lot of prep work. You said before we went on the air, you already cranked out line charts for NCHC schools. What type of content are you working on to get you through the next few weeks here?
Yeah, right now I am going to have a piece kind of on the NCAA and CHL battles and just how, the NCAA is, they've really been in an arms race. To build your roster, the NCAA's rosters are 100% through recruiting. You have to attract players to come there. And to do so, these teams have been bending over backwards trying to make experiences great for the players.
It's been an arms race with each other. Exactly.
With each other, yes. Yep. And in the CHL, they draft their prospects. They haven't had quite the same experience. Do they have to do some recruiting against maybe a guy who might go to NCAA or the USHL? Yes, but it's not nearly what the NCAA recruiting battles are. And so I think what you're seeing is a lot of these CHL prospects who come check out colleges, they're really blown away by the setups that these schools have because it's a lot different. And I think, another advantage the NCAA is going to have with attracting prospects is the whole college experience off the ice. A campus is a really fun place to be around. Living with your buddies on the team is a really fun experience. And I think once you have a round of CHL players come down, they're going to be sending texts to all their buddies about what the college experience is like, both on and off the ice. We're not just we're talking about development as a hockey player, but also development as a human being. And Gavin McKenna is going to be out there living on his own in Pennsylvania. And there are a lot of things in college that you develop that have nothing to do with the sport. And I think that will help him as a first-year NHL player, as a human. There's a human development aspect that gets completely overlooked. Anyways, I'm not getting into that part of my column, and now I'm really ranting long, but that's going to be one of my pieces. And then, as you said, the time is coming pretty soon when we're going to be doing our preseason picks. And I do a deep dive. I don't just look at last year's team.
Confirmed.
And I check out all the transfers, the freshmen, and as Jason said, I've already built my projected line charts for every NCHC team. I've started doing it for the CCHA in the Big Ten, and I just kind of move west to east as I build these line charts out. And then I look at them and decide which line chart do I like better. And that's how I I do use last year a little bit, but I do a deep dive. And so I'm kind of in the middle of some of that. Oh, and the last thing, because we may not record, August 1st is the new recruiting window for college hockey.
Yep.
It's going to be a big opening up. You can start offering, committing players who are entering their junior year of high school. So my project, which just got way harder with the opening of the CHL, is I usually drop a list of names to watch for that cycle. And I'm going through that right now. And it used to be easier than it was. Now there's so many more college eligible players, and those poor coaches.
Yeah, what do you even have a new process figured out for that yet? As far as establishing, like, you could literally, anyone could be on your watch list now. Like,
yeah, I mean, the thing before is, I had all these contacts in the U.S. and the thing that made it easy was the guys who are coming eligible for college were guys who were just eligible for the USHL draft and the NTDP. So all these USHL teams, the USA Hockey, and all these guys have been watching this group of players. And then I could kind of pick out, maybe the tenders that sign in the USHL and some really good players in the BCHL and AJHL and make my list. I don't have those type of contacts yet in the WHL and the OHL and the Q to know what a Bantam Western Canadian equates, so I'm having a tough time figuring that out. So I have a feeling my list this year may be the most inaccurate list I've ever compiled, just because I'm not dialed in yet on a lot of the Canadians.
Yeah, you're right. Even the draft coverage changed a lot. It used to be I would just grab the central scouting rankings and you scan the list and you find that either the college guys, the USHL guys, NTDP guys.
Yeah.
And you knew which ones were either in or committed to college hockey. This year, I literally had to take every single skater, every single goalie on that list, hundreds of players, and either search their elite prospects page or do Google News search to see if they had committed and I had missed it. This is the first world problems here, I understand, but it added probably 2 full days to what my normal coverage would have been. You're right.
Yeah, and everything will even itself out. We'll get used to it here in a couple of years, but this is year one for all this stuff. So also, when you see my list that comes out, no, it is not exactly a top 30 list. There is bias toward my territory here in North Dakota in the NCHC, traditional recruiting grounds. So if it seems like my list is too heavily Western based, it is. It's meant to be a little bit of that. So you are correct if you think it is Western based. That is intentional, and I will put a disclaimer at top. This is not a strict 1 through 30 list, but what it will be is a combination of guys who are going to be the best, and I will have Eastern guys on the list. But will it be shaded a little more heavily to the West? It will. So take that with a grain of salt if you do read my list when it comes out here in a couple weeks.
Duly noted, you homer. Duly noted. All right, thanks for hopping on today. We covered a lot of ground. I appreciate the time. Probably this will be it until we do our season preview, unless some more massive news breaks, which it very well could. So, Schloss, thanks for hopping on.
No problem. Catch you soon.
All right, and thank all of you for listening. We can't enjoy the hockey just yet, so please enjoy the rest of your summer.